And so I moved from South Florida to Jacksonville. And one of my classmates was here, and she kind of spoke up for me, and they hired me at Bowden Eye kind of sight unseen. And it just so happened that when I was interviewing with my future mother-in-law. Some of my classmates, if they're listening to this, they might be giggling because I wasn't the most studious in optometry school, far from it. By the way, I never wanted to be in disease to begin with. I wanted to do pediatrics and do vision therapy and all that stuff. So I really had no interest in being in ocular disease and ophthalmology, but I've worked for an ophthalmologist ever since, my whole career.
This is Optometrists Building Empires, and I'm your host, Ankit Patel. Each week, we'll explore the journey of practice ownership and leadership in optometry. Join us for insights and strategies from the top minds in our field. This show is sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team helps your office increase revenues, reduce costs, and reduce staffing headaches. Let's build your empire together. Today's guest is someone I know is going to be really informative. He's an impressive optometrist and thought leader with specialties in cornea, refractive, cataract, glaucoma, and ocular surface disease. He's an executive director of 90 Days to Dry Eye through PECA, and he helps practices nationwide implement effective dry eye programs. He's a founding member of Dry Eye University and serves on multiple industry advisory boards, including the executive board of the Preservative-Free Coalition and the editorial board of the Journal of Dry Eye and Ocular Surface Disease. He's chief optometrist at Bowden Eye and Associates and is founding member of the Dry Eye University program, which is an international leading program in treating dry eyes. Please welcome Dr. Jerry Robben. Jerry, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Really, it is. I can't wait to see how this conversation evolves.
I think it's going to be a fun one. You've got a lot of interesting things that we were talking about in our prep work. So what was the most important thing that helped you grow your empire?
Yeah, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, little look behind the curtain, I've certainly listened to probably about 15 or 20 of your podcasts leading up to this, knowing that this question is coming. And, it's interesting because I hear some similarities between a lot of the previous guests that you've had. And then certainly the individuality as well shines through, which it's a testament to you in this podcast. You have a wide range of different docs who are building their own empires in their own way, right? And I think that a common thing that we hear from your guests is that, we've never really thought of it as an empire, but I guess when you boil it down, that's kind of a fun way to think of it. And so, for me, as we go through the conversation, we'll obviously dive deep into what my quote unquote empire is building into. But if I had to answer that question, and I've thought about it a lot, it's really just being in the right place at the right time and knowing when that right time is and when to jump onto an opportunity that's there staring at you in the face and making the best of it as you can to see where it takes you. And, as you go on that ride, it's amazing how life goes. I think that all of us have probably had these stories where point A led to point B, led to point C, and look where we're at. And if you had never gone to point A to point B, you never would be down the road in where you're at. And that's kind of what I mean is a lot of steps that I can trace back now looking back led me to where I am. And if I hadn't gone down that path, then I wouldn't be here. And so I'm blessed. I'm lucky. A lot of people have played a role in just believing in me and shown me the interest I think that I was craving to kind of find myself as I've matured, and then help to kind of, pave my way down this path to where I'm going. Yeah. And I hope that makes sense. But, that's what I would say is that it's some luck and then some also knowing when the opportunity is there, grasping it and taking the bull by the horns, so to speak, to take advantage of the opportunity.
Let's dive into that a little bit because I'm curious. It sounds like, okay, you get to a crossroads. You have to decide, do I do this or do I not? And that happens several times in your career. How did you make that decision? Because in the moment, you may not know it's the right decision. What was it that was there a certain way you would make decisions? Like, was it feeling? Was it like value space? Was it vision? Curious how you, was there, or was it just sort of like, hey, I'm not really sure, but it just felt right. Like, tell us about like some common themes with how you made those decisions and taking advantage of opportunities.
Yeah, much like life, I'd say it was all the above, but at different times. But to kind of shed light on it a little bit, certainly there were opportunities where it was like a no-brainer. So, for instance, when I was finishing up my 4th year, I was doing my last rotation at a practice, called Ice Centers of South Florida, just down in North Miami Beach. So I went to school in Nova, so it was basically a local kind of externship. And, the head doctor there, ophthalmologist named Joseph Hoffman. This gentleman, I owe him everything. There's a lot of those I owe you everythings, but he was one of them. And basically the way he ran his practice was centered around, and still is centered around students. And he would have 15 students from various universities in his practice every 3 months for their rotations. And he didn't really have a lot of support staff besides the students. He had some key staff members, people that really students couldn't take that job on or that responsibility. But as far as the day to day, the way he ran his clinic, it all came through the students. And then he basically checked everything and signed off on it, and away we went. And so in that scenario, there was a lot of students there, and somebody would always kind of ultimately rise to the top, and I guess that was me. And he put a lot of faith in me. And after that initial rotation, or that last rotation for me, I was going to graduate, and my original plans were always to move back to Kansas. I didn't really have the foothold there, anything besides that's where I'm from. But professionally, I was just going to get my license and see where it takes me. And he came to me and offered me to stay there for a while. He wanted me to help him out and kind of run some of the other externships. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll stay here. So I literally went from being a student on Friday and closing out the last rotation of my 4th year, and went back to his office on Monday and started working, and kind of took over running the students for him. And I did that for a couple years, and it was kind of his um, faith in me and the responsibility he gave me, and how that kind of made me grow. Um, just basically, I took an interest in him taking an interest in me, so to speak, and it made me want to do really well for him. And with that, I took that up to where I'm at now at Bow 9 Associates, which, by the way, I never wanted to be in disease to begin with. I wanted to do pediatrics and do vision therapy and all that stuff. So I really had no interest in being in ocular disease and ophthalmology, but I've worked for an ophthalmologist ever since my whole career. And so that's just another one of those. I had no plans for that to happen, but because he offered me that opportunity and I took it, and I did, I think, a good enough job that it then springboarded me forward to where I could then get to the position that I'm at now at Bow 9 Associates, and build my own, kind of following there within that practice.
Yeah, a lot around disease, and it sounds a lot like, yeah, a work in dry eye now. Uh, so as you're growing this specialization, you're becoming, I would say now you're pretty well renowned in terms of your expertise. What'd you run into that you didn't expect? Right. And, one thing you just shared with us, you didn't expect to be doing disease. That's a big
Yeah.
one. What else did you run into that you didn't expect as you were growing?
Well, as far as on a personal level. So when I went to Bow 9 Associates, interestingly, I fell in love with the boss's daughter and married her, and I didn't have any, I thought literally I was gonna move to Bowden, stay there for a couple years, and then ultimately still I was thinking I was going back to Kansas or Colorado, and, so I moved from South Florida to Jacksonville, and, one of my classmates was here, and she, kinda spoke up for me, and they hired me at Bowden kinda sight unseen, and it just so happened that when I was interviewing with my future mother-in-law, and her daughter, my wife, Amanda, has worked for Bowden for 25 years up until recently. We were purchased by PE, and some things happened where she was no longer retained, but that's a whole nother story. But um, I didn't expect that at all, and so I've kind of, through my professional path, it led me to, my future wife, and now the rest is history. So I had no idea that that was going to happen and how intertwined it was all going to be. And a lot of people wonder, what it was like when, I mean, Amanda and I worked together in the same not just practice, but in the same location for years. And of course, my mother-in-law is our CEO and the boss, and there's other family members sprinkled in there, and it works great for us. I mean, I couldn't imagine it any other way.
That's pretty that's something I didn't expect as an answer.
Yeah,
You didn't expect to get married to the boss's daughter, I like
yeah.
that. Uh, and as far as, um, it's interesting, it's funny because 'cause you're like, y you're from Kansas, but you're in Jacksonville now. You're not a Jags fan, are you?
Dude,
'Cause
come on, man. Yeah,
okay.
so that's a prerequisite for marrying into my wife's family.
Well,
I grew up a Denver Broncos fan. My mother's father, my granddad, he purchased Broncos tickets way back, like over like
okay.
60 years
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
and they're on the 50-yard line, row two, and that's where we've always sat. And that's how I grew up watching like John Elway and those guys.
You married into it, and so now you're the
Yeah,
Jags.
and so
I
now I had to give that up to come over to the Jags side, and now I'm a Jags fan through and through. Duval till we die, baby. That's it.
I won't hold it against you, I'm a Titans fan, so
Oh man. Well, and likewise, I won't hold it against you as well.
fair enough. There's actually another, previous guest, I won't name his name, but he's a huge Colts fan.
Oh
He actually
wow.
listens to the
We're
podcast too,
AFC
so, like,
South. Here we are.
yeah, so I tease him a lot about it, but he's gotten the better of us for the last few years, so. So as far as, what led to your desire? You got into the ZAs. Why build that out? Why start these education programs? Why extend out? What was the reason for that?
Yeah, so, again, this is one of those things where I was guilty by association, really. So it all kind of started with my mother-in-law. Believe it or not, she's not a physician, but she is yeah, of all of us in our practice, she's probably the most well-known. Her name's Patty Barkey, and she is in charge of a lot of stuff when it comes to dry eye and a lot of other things in ophthalmology. Past ASO, like immediate past ASOA president, and she's a real mover and shaker in the administrative side on ophthalmology. But basically, what really happened was I call it the dry eye explosion occurred, or the dry eye renaissance. I sometimes call it. Um, Basically, that's when things like LipiFlow, tear osmolarity, Inflammadry, BlephX, Procara, Science-Based Health, Hydro Eye, and different dry eye products really kind of all hit the market at the same time, or at least hit our radar at the same time. We were early adapters into it, and Dr. Bowden always really was a stickler for dry eye. He's a Wills Eye trained cornea specialist, and he recognized before dry eye was cool that treating dry eye was paramount to reaching good surgical endpoints. And so to work in his practice, we had to aggressively treat dry eye. At that time, that aggressively treating dry eye was Restasis and plugs and a little bit out, it wasn't a lot. But then when all these other things hit the market in that explosion or that renaissance period, we grabbed onto all of it and we started to utilize it uh, in synchrony with each other. And a lot of the companies who owned these products and these devices saw what we were doing with them all and how we were integrating the technology together. And they wanted us to start to teach other practices and potential buyers of their products kind of how we used it. And that was flattering at first. And we'd have, different practices come in and hang out with us for a day and they'd learn from us. And after a while, that started to happen too much and it got in the way of us actually doing our jobs. And so Patty, the administrator, my mother-in-law, she pretty much told them that we couldn't do that anymore and that we needed to, focus on our things. And they said, "Well, can you do this in a seminar? Can you teach other people how to do it in a seminar?" And she's like, "No, no, we're eye doctors. We're here for exams and surgery. Somebody else can teach it." And they kept asking. And finally she said, "Okay, fine. We're going to develop a dry eye educational program and we're going to call it Dry Eye University. And we'll do it almost just to shut them up, almost to just get them off her back and our back." And it just so happened that it was a hit, and we did it for, like, 11 years straight, 2 or 3 times a year, all over, the country, and we had people from all over the world come, and literally, it was just us teaching them how we treat dry eye every day,
Mm.
and and it was the first of its kind, and there have been many others since, and there still are. We have since kind of retired Dry University, and we're moving on to some other ventures. Um, but that's kind of where that platform came from, and because Patty developed it and I was a key part of our practice and the day-to-day, and
Right.
we started this educational thing that has led to so much more as far as, promotional speaking and CE speaking and other platforms that I guess if we drilled down, that's the empire that I'm kind of trying to continue to build is, I'm not a practice owner. Again, the day job is the research and the day-to-day clinical stuff, seeing patients is all, is normal. But then the side gig, and that's what I'm building is this educational, 90 days to dry eye is the newest platform, and there are others that are in the works.
I love how you guys grew that. Can you tell me a little bit more about the why? Right, and like people got excited about it, and what made you excited about it, and what made you kind of want to take on, and not necessarily, like I said, there's many ways to build an empire. Like you said, it doesn't have to be practice ownership. What was your why behind growing your speaking, your teaching, your expertise, sharing your expertise with everyone?
Yeah, I think that I kinda crave it. I kind of crave being in front of people and speaking. I like it. It's challenging, and I think I'm good at it. To be honest with you, I wouldn't go around telling everybody I am, but I'm telling all y'all that are listening, I think I do a good job of educating. But when I was an undergrad, I was, believe it or not, I was a DJ, and, I did I ran a dance club in our bar district downtown, and there was a lot of on mic for that, of course, but even more so, I did weddings and things like that, and I wasn't just playing the music; I was the MC for the receptions. So there's a lot of just getting up in front of people and not just talking, but getting their attention, entertaining to a point, and also connecting dots between the wedding reception and what all the players wanted, right? And again, this goes back to that pathway. That was something that I firmly believe was a preparation for me to be able to now professionally get up in front of ODs and MDs and whoever else wants to listen and tell them about what I know about the subject matter that we're talking about. And, so I think that there's this internal craving of the limelight, to be
Mm.
honest with you. I get nervous. I get nervous before I get on with you. I get nervous, before I go to a CE program or a promotional dinner. I get nervous before I go into my own stuff. And I think that's a healthy thing. I think that it makes it confirms that I care about it. I wouldn't be nervous if I didn't wanna do the best that I could, but, I think that that's partially why is I like to get in front of people and talk to them. The other why, that I'm so passionate about dry eye disease in general is I think it's an unmet need for sure, and there's more and more of us out there recognizing it and treating it proactively and aggressively treating it. I call it appropriately aggressive. Dry eyes, a tough cookie. I think it's one of the hardest things to treat because it's so multifactorial and there's so many different players involved. But I think that it's a big need, and I see people every day where dry eye is not just their biggest eye problem. Dry eye is the biggest problem of their life.
Mhm.
And maybe they wouldn't be like that had someone recognized their problem years ago and offered them aggressively appropriate treatment. And so that's what I try to do for everybody. And really my passion with 90 Days to Dry Eye and Dry Eye University before it and whatever else comes after, we can get as into the weeds as we want about dry eye and get as technical and get exotic with a lot of the things that are out there. But what I truly want, if somebody boiled it down, is I want every eye care provider to care about dry eye and to at least treat it. They may not be treating it the same way I would treat it. Uh, they may not have all the tools and the different things that I have and other specialists have, that's fine. But I think that everyone should treat it. I think it's going to someday literally be like dentistry. I think that it will be like cleaning plaque on your teeth and dental hygiene. And 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 right now, dry eye is just in its infancy, and and I think it's gonna be more widespread. It might not be in my lifetime, it probably won't be, but I hope that in a way I can help the whole just eye care community to get a little further closer to that end goal where dry eye is as normal as treating dental hygiene.
Um, it's funny you say that. Our office, we started doing that in terms of some treatments that we do as a regular. That's how we present it. It's like, hey, this is like hygiene,
Yep.
right? You get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. This is yearly hygiene. And it's people do fund us, and we do this as well for our patients because we feel it's the proper care at our offices. So
Yep.
it's reassuring to hear someone as respected you to say that. So I appreciate it. That lets me know we're on the right track with that.
Absolutely.
So building on that, what are you most excited about in the industry? You talked about dry eyes. Is there anything else you want to build on? Like, what else are you excited about?
I like the whole myopia thing, and I used to be, a little hands off about it. My classmate Brianna Rue, you had her on, not too long ago. She's always been, the myopia management gal out there, and she's always been a bit of an inspiration for me to pay a little bit more attention to it. And certainly my kids, my 2 boys, they're 9 and 7, they're going down that road, and Brianna knows this in her head. If she is listening to this, she's saying, something like, "Jerry, you're a -10 myope," and "Yeah, I was a I am a -10 myope. I had ICLs last year, which is amazing." And that's refractive surgery, ICLs. I mean, that was a life changer for me. But myopia management is expanding. It's still in its infancy as well as the studies are coming out and the Briannas out there are pounding the drum for more and more people to get on board with that too, as we all should. I think that that's a wheelhouse thing for optometry and you don't have to hear me to say that. That's what everybody who's in the know is saying, and I think it's our obligation to be looking for this, educating about it, and treating it early and often. Um, because you don't want to be a minus 10. You don't want your kids to be a minus 10 like I was, or I am. I still have a minus 10 eye. I just have an ICL inside of it. But, so all those risks still are there for me, as Brianna would say. But, that's a thing, and then just, we're lucky because eye care in general, and you hear this from the people in the industry who've bounced around, eye care is very technology driven. There's the whole AI stuff coming down, which is taking root in every aspect of life, but it's certainly taking root in medicine and taking root in eye care. And I know you have a lot of insight on that, and it's exciting. And it's even just in 6 months to 6 months, the things that are changing in the AI and what it can do for practice management and efficiencies and accuracy and all that stuff, it's pretty amazing. So, there's a lot of different avenues, but, those are some of the things that are top of mind for me.
That's exciting. I like what you're saying with that. So I agree with you. It's exciting to be in the industry right now. And that's coming from an outsider. I'm not a doctor, but I really do like this industry. It's a pretty neat industry.
Yeah, you're not a doc, but you're not an outsider either, man. I mean, there's all sorts of different hats to wear in the eye care industry, and they're all equally important, right? And so, we all can have a say.
I appreciate that. I want to shift gears a little bit. Tell me a story that's very formative about you. Like, tell me a story that made you who you are. Could have been when you were much younger, could have been more recent, but something that first comes to mind is like, oh yeah, that kind of made me who I am. Like you shared one a little bit earlier about how you took on a DJ, that kind of helped you out. I'm curious, is there anything else that you have as a story that kind of formed you into who you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we kind of talked about my DJ experience and now, it when I was listening to your podcasts, some of these stories kind of stuck out to me too. And when I was listening to Richard Maharaj, he referenced his parents and specifically his dad. And I really thought that resonated with me, not to steal his answer, but I thought it was an excellent answer, and it really applies to me as well. I grew up in a small town in Kansas, farming community, ranching, 800 people population, tiny. And, so we literally grew up on a farm and doing farm stuff, cows, farming, tractor driving, all that stuff. And, I from a small age, I would drive around with my dad and we'd feed cows and do the chores. And he'd always tell me about kind of like these core value things that would work itself into the day-to-day conversation, working hard, accountability and all of that. And one thing that he always kind of hit me with over and over again was, doing better than what he did. And it's not that he was, destitute or anything. We, had a wonderful upbringing and everything we ever could possibly need. He provided. He and my mom both provided, but they didn't have college educations and they just worked really hard. And he didn't want that for me. So, I was the oldest grandson on both sides of my family, and I very well could have just stayed there and helped out with the family farm and inherited it and everything else. And my dad told me from a young age, "No, you're not gonna do what I did. I want you to go to school." And he didn't say I needed to do and he didn't say, "Go be an optometrist." He didn't say, "Go be a doctor," or anything. He just wanted me to get an education, a college education, something he and my mom never had. And so that now that I'm a parent, that repeated messaging is gonna come out of my mouth to my kids too, like, "Hey, you should do more than what I did, or at least I hope better for you than what I had." Not that I have anything to complain about, right? But I think that homegrown kind of on the farm mentality and that work ethic, if I had to boil it down, kind of makes me who I am. And, some of my classmates, if they're listening to this, they might be giggling because I wasn't the most studious in optometry school, far from it. Um, y- but but as I get older, I realize that hard work does really pay off. And I wish I would have worked a little harder still back in my school days. But again, I wouldn't really change anything from where I'm at, other than just continue to work hard and again, take advantage of those opportunities when they present.
Yeah. So let's build on that a little bit. What would you give younger Jerry advice on right after you graduated optometry school? What advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, so right after optometry school, again, there was a lot of unknowns.
Mm,
Dr. Hoffman had, offered me that kind of, temporary position there, which ended up being for 2 years. It was longer than he thought he was going to need me for, but it all worked out. But, I would tell myself to trust the process, to not worry, don't sweat the small stuff. Don't worry so much about what other people think. That's a maturity thing. I think we all get to that point. Um, but to just trust the process, because I mean, again, the ride was amazing. Getting up to graduating optometry school was an epic adventure. Um, Coming from that small town and then moving to South Florida and being there for a total of 6 years after I graduated, with the 2 years after I graduated, so six total. That, I wouldn't trade that for anything. But I you know, trusting the process, and I think following the opportunities, which we talked about earlier, it got me to where I am supposed to be, and that's here in Jacksonville with my wife Amanda and my two kids, and doing all of this stuff that I never would have dreamed that I'd be doing. And when I talk about it with my parents, I don't think they can imagine it either, and it's something I'm really proud of. Um, You know, I again, coming from where I came from, to think about, just being on this podcast with you, it's kinda crazy, and, again, it's an honor, but, um, it's a journey, that's for sure, and trusting the process, I think, would be just to have confidence and trust the process is what I would tell myself.
I like that. And so so people want to connect with you, Jerry. Where can they connect with you? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so, there's social media. So, on LinkedIn is usually the best. So it's just, Jerry Robben, the whole LinkedIn thing. And last name's Robben. And there's that. And there's, of course, Facebook. On Facebook, my professional is Dr. Jerry Robben. And then, of course, there's my email, which um, my email is jrobben@dryeyepartners.com. And those are really the best way to get a hold of me.
Right. And we'll put all that information inside of the show notes for folks to get a hold of you. So thank you again, Dr. Jerry Robben, for being a guest on the show.
Hey, like I've said many times, an honor, a lot of fun. I hope you've found some interesting nuggets there. I hope your listeners did too.
Yeah, I actually did. And I like to do a little takeaway. So what I took away from this is take advantage of opportunities that come to you. So if you had the hard work from when you were a kid, eh, I think it sounded like that sort of enables you to make it easier to say yes to a lot of opportunities that came in front of you. And you built a lot of skills like around DJing and things that weren't necessarily tied to professionalism, but you built skills. Which what it sounds like is I don't know if this for a fact, but the ophthalmologist that offered you the externship right after graduating, I imagine because you're good with people and connecting people, it probably made you much more attractive in that role to manage other externs, right? And so that ended up starting building, and I would imagine it helped you with interview skills and everything else. It sort of compounded interest. So it's almost like this piece of compounding interest of skills over time, helping get you where you are now, where you've got your empire around speaking and presenting. And so it all started from the hard work to saying yes to opportunities to building to where you are now. That's just my interpretation of what I saw.
Ankit, that's amazing. I love the compounding interest analogy. I couldn't say it any better. I've never thought of it that way, but that's 100% accurate. And thanks for that. I mean, that just in a nutshell, that nails it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think I want to hit on the point again of saying yes to opportunities that are in front of you. You may not want to know where they go, but they've compounded over time for you in small decisions. So I think that's good insight for other folks to take from this.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and thank you, audience. If you learned something or laughed, please share this podcast with a friend. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you won't miss an episode. Thank you again, Dr. Robben, for being a guest. And this has been another exciting episode of Optometrist Building Empires. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Optometrist Building Empires. Thanks for joining. For show notes and more, visit buildingempires.live. This show is proudly sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team was born out of staffing challenges my wife and I faced together, managing multiple optometry locations. We refined our approach at Classic Vision Care and now offer our expertise to others. If you're experiencing challenges with staffing and you'd like to set up a discovery call, we'd be happy to help you and connect you with the right resources. We'll see you next time.